All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What's going on, everybody? Hold on. I got to get this right away. What's going on? Let's move us up. There we go. What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday afternoon with my man, Hebrewcheetah, the NBA GOAT himself, talking a little 7-game on DraftKings. There's 9 games on FanDuel. We will not touch on the last 2, but we have projections for it. It'll be on the Stone Showdown contest tonight. I didn't look at the prize pools. Is there Showdown contest tonight too, Rio? Or did they mess up the slate pretty bad?
Yeah, it's not the prize pools aren't great, but I've been doing it the last couple nights just because they've been splitting up the slate, so I might get something up. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's actually a 6-game slate now because they had that New Orleans Milwaukee game. Yeah, snow in like Florida and in New Orleans right now, which is crazy. But yeah, 6-game slate.
6 games and 8 games. Yeah, so my mistake there. I love it first when I look at the slate, just the times, like quality of life. How is it for the NBA? It's really good for if you want to be on your computer as least as possible. That does give some late, like the people that truly grind like us. And if you're playing NBA, you should always be one of them. From start to finish, you got to be around your computer. But 7:30 start time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 30-minute window. Then you're done from there. The late games tonight, I wouldn't have minded if they include on DraftKings, but the night slate I think should be solid. Showdown should be solid. A couple hours later, we have a 10 p.m. Eastern and a 10:30, but 7:30, 8 p.m. Eastern, all 6 games will be done. Big. I like the $5. Always mention it. 70,000 people on DraftKings tonight. So, yeah, any initial thoughts, injuries, plenty of Q tags, and we go game by game. I'll talk about it, but any that stand out to you that you think might be out? Again, with the condensed start times, we might have every single injury news by the first game. Discord and stuff will be important like always, but any thoughts, just broad slate before we go game by game?
Oh yeah, I guess like last night was interesting for the contest in the late slate because they had a 30K to first in the 2-gamer, the late night slate, and then just 20K in Showdown, which is kind of interesting. Usually those are flipped, but I haven't checked tonight if that's the case. Might end up playing a little bit in the 2-gamer. But yeah, as far as tonight goes, obviously got a lot of news in that Brooklyn stuff. I still think there could be more coming. Nick Claxton wasn't on the injury reports. I think there's a chance that he could get listed throughout the day. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's decently clean. We're still waiting on the Dallas stuff. Like you said, that should come in time with 3 games starting at the same time, and then you have those other 3 at the 8 p.m. slot. So we should have most of the injury news. It could get pretty crazy close to lock, but those are, I think, the main ones that we were waiting on is in those first games. So we should have plenty of time to digest all that news. Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting tonight with the lack of spend ups. Highest priced player on the slate is 10.7K. You have pretty much only point guards to spend up for, a couple centers and power forwards you can get to, but it's pretty much all point guards as a spend up. So roster construction is going to be interesting tonight, but yeah, I'm interested in that Utah and OKC game. Utah's getting a bunch of guys back tonight, so maybe there's a chance they could hang around a little bit. Do have a pretty big Q tag there with Jalen Williams questionable, but yeah, if there's a chance that Utah can hang around, should get some pretty big scores on the OKC side.
It was hurtful yesterday. I definitely did not need Philly to blow out, but that's how the NBA rolls sometimes. Talking for your broad slate, point guard, LaMelo 10-7, SGA 10-5, Cade 10-2, Trey 9-6, Ant 9-3. The highest 5 price guys on the slate, all point guard. Ant does have shooting guard eligibility, like you mentioned. Another last thing, like broad slate overview, center looks really strong, especially in the mid tier. I think 2 centers will be pretty popular with the spend up at point guard. Then from there, kind of a more balanced build. But again, if some of these Q tags are out, maybe it does change some things. We'll go game by game. Got to say hi to people in chat like always. Our man Sean Sullivan, first one in. What's going on, Sean? Wins a lot. Lyle, Paraby, Ricky, Gangrene, Takedown, Wardo, Knicks. Hey, we got Knicks and New York back-to-back. Gangrene, Charlie, Anthony Massey, Jason Turner, Wardo, I think I said hi. Ryan Shepard, Michael Peterson, Michael W., Richie Smalls. Appreciate every single one. I got everyone. I know I did. Lachlan in here, Luis in here, Big Ed in here. Oh, we asked like button, subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. Again, talking these 6 games now on DraftKings with the Bucks and the Pelicans postponed. We'll get it right into it, Rio. Yeah, I mean, I love every single one of your breakdowns. Your slate plan's up. I will mention, too, I did look on NBA slate plan is where Rio breaks it all down. 2 things I want to mention. Yes, it's $30K on the night slate, $20K on the showdown. They did make the prizes bigger on the 2-gamer. And then starting next week, now that football will be pretty much wrapping up after the main weekend, we will have shows on Thursday. So Monday through Friday, the same quick hit on Saturday. Rio and I will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. BJ Ham, Monday, Friday. For the most part, of course, we always in there covering for each other if we need. So any games, 4-game slates or above, you can expect us to see us on the YouTube channel Monday through Friday. Let's get into it, Rio. The first game of the night. Again, all of them very condensed, 7:30 and 8 p.m. Eastern. Should get all the injury news are pretty close right before lock. Detroit Pistons taking on the Atlanta Hawks. We have a 235-ish total. The Hawks 3.5-point favorites. No injury news on the Detroit side. Atlanta, big Q tag to start. Jalen Johnson questionable. Zachary Rishire is out. Might have butchered the name. He ain't even great anyway, though. Started off pretty big total in this one. Pretty solid pace, as you can see on the Hawks side. One of those spend-ups, Trae Young at point guard. The other, Cade Cunningham. Both going to get some ownership, no doubt. I do think SGA, if I had to pick, probably comes in highest owned. I think it's him or Cade. Interested to hear your take at the ownership at point guard, then break down this game.
Yeah, as far as the ownership stuff goes, I definitely expect it to be SGA and Cade as the top 2 spends tonight. I think as we get closer to lock, it's probably going to be favoring SGA by a pretty wide margin, I would say. I could see SGA coming in like 30%, Cade probably low 20s. But yeah, this is a pretty solid game to kick things off. I'm kind of surprised that Detroit isn't closer to being a pick'em because they've been playing really well this month. 8-3 record this month, coming off a huge win over the Rockets. Their defense has been great, ranking 4th in defensive rating over their last 11 games. They've been getting it done with elite rim protection, ranking 2nd in the league in rim protection this month. But as they kind of have been all season long, their 3-point defense a little bit worse, and they're giving up some on-ball scoring. Pick and roll defense has not been that great. The Hawks, on the other hand, have been really struggling defensively, finding themselves in the bottom 10 defensive rating this month, ranking second worst in rim defense in January, and their 3-point defense all season long has been pretty bad. Also giving up the 2nd most pick and roll ball handler points per game, as they allowed Dyson Daniels to kind of play defense on an island by himself. That can lead to some pretty big volumes for pick and roll guys. So that kind of leads me right into Cade. He's one of the best pick and roll scorers in the league this season. I think he's third in the league. Yeah, 3rd in the league in pick and roll scoring and points per game. And the Hawks allowing 2nd most pick and roll points. I think he should be able to put up a good amount of volume there. We saw you can go as soon as back one game where Atlanta just gave up a 34-pointer to Jalen Brunson, put up 46 DK points that game. Cade's playing really well right now, so I really like the spot for him. I think Tobias Harris is pretty solid at 5.6K, good price tag. He's still playing a lot with how the Hawks play defense. They give up a lot of catch-shoot scoring, so that's pretty solid matchup there for Tobias Harris. And then Jalen Duren, he's playing really good as well over the last 3 games, averaging 41.5 DK points per game. Been an absolute beast on the glass, averaging a double-digit rebounds in 3 straight games with double-doubles in all of those games. And with the Hawks putting Onyeka Okongwu in the starting lineup, we saw them kind of struggle with their offensive rebounding last game, gave up 12 to the Knicks. And on top of that, with the rim defense being bad as of late, this should be a really, really good spot for Jalen Duren. So I like those top 3 guys a good bit here tonight. And then I think that Beasley, Asar Thompson, and Hardaway are all in play for different reasons. Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. are the catch-shoot guys. Beasley definitely has more upside from a scoring perspective, a little bit more expensive, but I don't mind him or Tim Hardaway. This is probably one of the better game environments on the slate, so I'll probably get to a good bit of those guys. And then Asar Thompson, much better with the transition stuff. Hawks aren't great with their transition defense. I think Asar gets, around like 40%, 50% of his scoring in transition this season. So looks like a pretty good spot for Asar Thompson, but I really like Cade up top. I really like Jalen Duren the best. And then the Atlanta side, a little bit less appealing for me. 9.6K is a fine price tag for Trae. He's been playing really well this month. also averaging 28.3 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 10.1 assists, 51.4 DK points per game. Asar Thompson will be on trade to start, but Asar is not really capable right now of playing 30-plus minutes, so there'll be some weaker defenders on him for stretches of this game. But yeah, he's starting to shoot the ball really well, so I'm okay getting to some Trey as a lower owned option in the upper tier for point guards. I don't mind him. I don't really like what I'm seeing from Jalen Johnson right now. His usage has come way down since returning from the shoulder injury. He's definitely very limited right now, not taking a lot of shots. The 3-point volume has not been there. Only attempted 2 threes in the last 2 games. He's questionable tonight as well, so they're probably going to sit him out either tonight or tomorrow because they are in a back-to-back. But I just don't think I'm going to get there right now. Jalen Johnson kind of need to take a wait-and-see approach right now just because the front court touches and touches overall have been way down in his first 2 games back. So going to be a wait-and-see approach there. I think Hunter is probably a little bit too expensive. Don't really think there's a ton of upside there. But I do like Onyeka Okongwu here at 5.6K, assuming that he's given the start again. Should see around 27 to 29 minutes should be the range for him. Jalen Duren's not going to pull him away from the basket like Karl Anthony Towns did last game, so should have a lot more opportunities for rebounds tonight. I just think that he's just clearly the much more talented player at this point of their careers between him and Clint Capella. So I think they'll continue to lean into him a little bit more. There are some talks about Capella possibly being on the trade block as well, so I think they kind of want to get Okongwu settled in as the starting center, probably settling in around the 30-ish minute range. So I think that he's pretty solid. 5.6K, would much prefer him over a guy like Rudy Gobert that's getting a little bit of ownership. And the last guy I'll mention on the Atlanta side, I think Vit Krejci is not the worst player. There'll probably be some better value at the position. But Bogdan Bogdanovic is just playing terribly right now, kind of to the point where he's unplayable in terms of just being in the rotation. And Krejci's been actually really good as a starter for the Hawks this season. So I think that he should be kind of getting a little bit more minutes as we move forward, and they kind of lean away from Bogdan a little bit. So I don't mind him at all.
Well, I mean, what happened to Bogdan? Like, he was good on Serbia with Jokic. I mean, he was fine. Like, he had a couple games for sure. He playing with Jokic is easy, but I mean, it's been a complete fall off. Like, that game log is, 14 minutes, like 0 for 4. I mean, just everything. He hasn't had a notable fantasy game. I guess Phoenix, you take 28. The price tag just way, way down there. But any thoughts on what could have happened to Bogdanovic?
Now, I know he's been dealing with a lot of issues with the knee. So maybe, I don't know, that could definitely affect your shooting if your legs just aren't strong. And all he really does, right now, he's just a off-ball guy. At one point of his career with Atlanta, he was more on ball and could create his own offense. But right now, he just can't, and he's just shooting the ball terribly. So I don't know. It could just be the knees, could be him getting older. It definitely. I feel like it was a really long summer for a lot of these NBA players, and the Hawks were in the playoffs too, weren't they? I think they were in the play-in game, something like that. So yeah, it's just a lot of basketball. Probably just has really tired legs from playing in that FIBA. Was it the FIBA World Championship?
That was the Olympics.
The Olympics, yeah. So just could just be a long summer. It just never really got healthy.
Yeah. 2 other things in this game: Onyeka Okongwu or Duren. 5'6" Okongwu, 5'5" Duren. Obviously, you can play them both. I mentioned center being strong. 2 very strong ones right here. We'll get to a couple others. But if you had to pick, do you have a lean? Is there, based on anything in your roster? Like, if you play Trey, are you more likely to play Okongwu? Vice versa? Like, Cade, opposite pairing? Do you not care at all? Do you have a preference straight up? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, not really. They're pretty similar. I think that they both have really enticing ceilings. The matchup would probably be better for Duren in terms of the Hawks being worse with the rim protection. But I kind of feel like the minutes might be a little bit safer for Okongwu now with 4 straight games, 27 plus minutes, whereas Duren, he can get cut down a little bit if Stewart's playing well, and he will pretty much never play more than 30 minutes in a game. I don't know. It's pretty even. I guess it would make more sense if you go Trey Duren and Cade Okongwu, something like that, just to kind of get some exposure to the other side of the game.
I was thinking maybe the pick and roll stuff with Trey, at least with Okongwu, whereas if Trey can get you 14 assists and Okongwu can get you 7 lobs, whereas Duren or Okongwu is not low, ISO low post in the block too much that way where it takes away from the other guys, but. I don't know. I mean, it's very, very minuscule.
It definitely is easier to correlate Trey with a Kongwu because
Yeah.
then you could just get to like Tobias Harris on the other side. Whereas if you go Cade and Duran, you're kind of left with not much on the Atlanta side, which you don't really like have to go out of your way to correlate. But I do think on a 6-game slate with a lot of these, or a couple of these games potentially being pretty big blowouts, it would make sense to get like 3 pieces in this game. I'm just trying to think. Like I don't know who you would add to that on the Atlanta side. Like maybe.
Are you
maybe
fine going
Krejci.
3 Pistons and no Hawks?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
6
think you
game
could-
slate.
Yeah.
I think so for sure. I think this is probably the best game on the slate right here if I had to pick one. So I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Last thing, you mentioned like if Duran doesn't get the full run, it's because Stewart's playing well. 3.1K. I know center is very good, 2 center builds, but that could get you, I guess, double point guard, like the Lamette, like Cade, Trey, Stewart, something or something like that. Is he viable as a 3.1K punt at center?
I don't think so. Not in this slate, just because the opportunity cost is really high tonight on center with there being so many good plays. And it's pretty easy to get up to both Cade and SGA tonight with there being other values at different positions that we'll talk about later. Yes, I don't really think I want to get to too much Isaiah Stewart. I'd rather have a lot of my center ownership condensed around like the Mark Williams, Gafford, Okongwu, Duran type of plays. Even Nick Richards, I think, is good. So I'd rather have those guys in my pool than Stewart.
Makes a lot of sense. Spent a lot of time on that first game, but again, I do think it is very important. Look at ownership in this game on both sides. A lot of double digits you see. Then we're going to get to this next game. Only 2 in double digits. So that's one way right away. Checking ownership. You can see what game's going to get a good bit. Let's keep it rolling to a very big spread. The Phoenix Suns taking on the Brooklyn Nets. 12.5 point favorites are the Phoenix Suns. 215.5 total. So a lot bigger spread, a lot lower total. Usually does not mean, or that usually means at first glance, not much interest in DFS. Mainly though, you look at the injury report, and on the Brooklyn side, they'll be without D-Russ, Zaire Williams. On the doubtful side, Ben Simmons, Cam Johnson, and you mentioned Claxton previously that he's not on the injury report. You say you wouldn't be surprised though if the Nets do pull something else. I guess don't answer that yet. When I throw it to you, bring that up again. Phoenix side, Bradley Beal questionable. There was big talks. So the Suns just got 3 first-round picks from your Jazz. They're going to be going after Jimmy Butler. You got to think Beal will be a part of that trade. Curious to hear what else you think. Or, I mean, they said Beal was on the block. I assume he has to go contract-wise. Thoughts on that, though? And then 12.5 point favorites. This game's going to be pretty low owned. Big boy spread, though. If the Nets can stay close, can you make a case for any of these guys as contrarian spends? So talk about the Butler trade stuff, and then you mentioned Claxton injury news-wise. So break down that stuff first in this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with the trade stuff. Like, first of all, I would be pretty upset if I was a Heat fan or just like in a Heat organization if you see like Butler just like changing his hair color and wearing the different shoes, like wearing the Suns colors and stuff like that. Like, it's pretty clear that he's just completely checked out when he's playing for the Heat. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent on him now. Just like I understand the whole stuff with his dad last season where he was like his dad was sick and he's traveling back and forth and like he did a lot for the Heat organization and stuff. But right now he's just kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, the way that he's going about everything here. Seems a little salty that they're going kind of leaning on Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero more instead of him. But I get it. He's still got a lot of tread left on his tires, so probably wants to be somewhere where he can be emphasized. I think I saw something saying that he'd much rather play as like the third fiddle to KD and Booker than Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. So it's kind of interesting. But
he'd literally rather play with any 2 players than those 2 right now because that means he'd be out of the Heat. Like he just wants to be on any team but them. Yeah. I assume he wants to compete for a championship, but it's clear as day it's not Miami.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean that trade definitely like I think Jimmy Butler going to end up on the Heat or on the Suns pretty soon. Just got to kind of iron out the details.
What is it? Beal in the first round picks, and you think that'll pretty much be it, or like a flyer here and there, but nothing big in the deal?
I think that I've been seeing some mock trades that there needs to be a third team involved. I think I've
Okay.
seen something about like Beal going to the Bucks too. Yeah, so
I don't
yeah,
know. I'm always a Beal guy, but I mean, you need to play defense. Like him and Dame are very similar that way. I would have loved Jimmy, and again, it's too much. I think for the Bucks, but played college ball right down the road at Marquette. Talk about being the third guy, like the defensive intensity and stuff, competitiveness there. Like he's going to turn it on where he goes.
yeah,
I'd
that
much
I
rather.
think he'd be a pretty
That'd
good
be a
fit. And
perfect fit.
yeah, not sure how he'd fit in with the Suns, but I mean, that team is just pretty. The Suns are pretty underwhelming right now, just as an organization. So that could definitely help. But yeah, my Jazz going all in on the 2031 draft. They got to have their eyes on some. I'm not actually. That was gonna sound really weird, but yeah. So they got that's supposed to be a very highly touted draft pick, just because the Suns are probably going to be really bad by that time. Just with Kevin Durant probably is not going to be in the league by 2031. Booker will be in his 30s, and very good chance he's probably playing somewhere else. So that draft pick could be pretty valuable, and the picks that they're trading away are more than likely going to be end of the first round picks, because Cavs look like they're going to be really good for a long time. Timberwolves also should be pretty solid for the next few years. So yeah, Jazz still have I think 7 draft picks over the next 7 first round draft picks over the next 5 years. So they should be totally fine there. But yeah, spent a lot of time talking about anything but this game. As far as this game goes, though, yeah, I just think it's going to be a struggle for the Nets on offense. We've seen multiple times over the past 4 games where they're struggling to even break 100 points. They put up, what was it, 67 points against the Clippers the other game, or like 4 games ago. I was talking about that in Discord just before going live. Like if the Nets were on the slate on that game, we likely would have been. I think they were off the main slate. It was just a showdown game. If they were on the slate on that game, on that slate, then we probably would have been playing some Nets pieces just because they were so thin, and you really wouldn't have been happy with anybody's score outside of Day'Ron Sharpe, because I don't think anybody in the first unit even got past 10 points, and then nobody off the bench really did that great. So you probably would have only wanted Day'Ron Sharpe. Like, I don't think this is a situation where you need to play Nets players. Now that could change if Claxton does get ruled out. He wasn't listed on the injury report when they ruled out Simmons and Russell D'Lo and all that stuff, but they've been managing him a lot on these back-to-backs. He played 34 minutes last night, so there's a good chance even if he plays, it's something like 20 to 24 minutes, and they run a little bit more Clowney at the 5, a little bit more Day'Ron Sharpe at the 5. So I would kind of be looking at this as like an 8.5-man rotation. But even then, like Keon Johnson's pretty expensive, 5.7K. I don't think that Jalen Wilson or Tyrese Martin are smash value plays at those price tags. There's going to be guys that are actually good NBA players in that same range that you could probably get lower ownership on. Now, I'm not seeing too crazy of ownership on ththese Nets pieces. That could definitely change throughout the day. But I think the guys that I'm most interested in are Tosan and Reese Beekman. I've been seeing a Reese Beekman potentially starting. I don't think that he's going to start. They've been going with a Keon Johnson at the 1, and then they'll have Jalen Wilson there at the 2-3 with Martin. But this team just has like literally no guys that can create offense or handle the ball. Reese Beekman is pretty much the lone like true point guard on this team, and he's been priced. So I think that he'd be the guy I'm the most interested in. And then Tosan, just because he kind of can do a little bit of everything, but he's a really good rebounder. Maybe gets into like the upper 20s if Claxton is limited at all. So those are the guys I'd be the most interested in. Tyrese Martin kind of would fit a lot of builds as well with the shooting guard, small forward eligibility, but in general, just not too excited about this game. But we'll see how we get closer to lock if Claxton gets ruled out or something like that. On the Sun side,
sorry. One thing, this game period isn't going to really get much ownership at all. A lot of the fear, like what you said with Nets side, Suns, just the guys you want to play are so expensive relative to other good spends. But one quick thing, like point guard is really loaded. Point guard and center are the 2 positions. What do you need from Beekman that you'd feel solid? Like 21? Another guy, like we mentioned, the Isaiah Stewart's at a good center position. Nick Smith's the other one that will be by far the most popular. He does have shooting guard small forward eligibility, which is big, Nick Smith Jr., but like, what do you need from Beekman? And I take it you think Nick Smith's a lot better play than both of them, and then get to the Suns side.
Yeah, for sure. Nick Smith is hands down the best value on the slate tonight. But I'd be pretty happy if I got 20, 22 from Beekman, something like that. I don't think that you would need to have him if that's what he gave you, because there are ways to get up to Cade and SGA without having to play a guy like Beekman. Just from what I saw earlier today, running some optimal lineups. But I just think at low ownership, if the ownership does stay in like the mid single digits, I think that there is a little bit more upside on a guy like Beekman versus like Keon Johnson and Tyrese Martin, just from like a points per dollar standpoint. Yes, I'd be pretty happy if I got 20 from Beekman. I think there's probably a little bit of upside for more.
Just perfect. Yeah, you answered the question. Sunside, talk about that. Any interest there? You said Richards, he'll be pretty low owned, so I guess start with there.
Yeah, I'll start with Richards. His rotation was kind of all over the place last game. He lost a few minutes due to blowout, but Nick Richards has kind of always been a solid per minute guy. They traded for him for a reason. Nurkic is not ready to play yet, so there's probably a couple more games where we get just Nick Richards as the starting five, and I think 29 minutes is definitely within the range for him. And this is a great matchup with the Nets being awful with their rim defense. I didn't really talk about the defensive stuff, but Nets really slipping a lot as of late with their defense. Rim defense been terrible. Transition defense been really bad as of late. So I think it's a pretty interesting spot to get to Nick Richards as a pivot off of those guys like Duren and Okongwu, Rudy Gobert that are getting a lot of ownership. Just because we saw the ceiling that he can have. It was a really tough matchup, though, against Cleveland, obviously with Jared Allen down low. Kind of lost some minutes as well because they ran some small ball lineups behind him, so didn't really need him out there. But against Detroit, I mean, you saw he put up 21 and 11. That's a spot where you need his size. And against the Nets, there's a good chance they run a full 48 minutes of Daron Sharp and Nick Claxton, maybe a little bit of Clowney mixed in. So, yeah, I think if Richards get up to like the 28, 29 minutes range, he looks really good as a low-on value piece. Pivot off of those center guys. And then KD and Booker, not really too much to say there. The role has been a lot better for Booker, leading the team in touch time and touches per game. The assist number has been really good, averaging 7 assists per game this month. Usage, I believe he leads the team in usage and assist percentage this month as well, with KD just behind him. But I'll say matchup-wise, just the Nets' defensive scheme is a lot worse for guys that play more of like an on-ball role. They've been pretty good at limiting guards each season long, even losing guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Dennis Schroeder. So I think the matchup is slightly better for KD, but I think the upside is definitely leaning on the Booker side. He's got a couple double-doubles mixed in there, 3 out of the last 4 games. So I like Booker a little bit more than KD tonight. Play him at shooting guard, pair him with one of SGA and Cade is kind of my route.
I agree. I'm almost always a Booker over KD person. The shooting guard, I would definitely play him at shooting guard over points. It's still tough for me. Like, I'd rather go pretty low owned Trey, like spend a little more for LaMelo. I think is interesting. I definitely like Cade a lot. I just feel like some of these other spends, like competing with KD and then the blowout factor in this game, again, it'll definitely keep him low owned. I'll probably get some Booker and probably run 100 teams in the $5. He would be my favorite son. Maybe I'll bump Nick Richards a little bit because, again, center is going to be pretty concentrated of Duren, Okongwu, Mark Williams, Jared Allen, Gobert is like they're going to get a little bit too. Gafford, like you mentioned. So, I mean, it gets spread out to an extent, but Nick Richards, he probably was like 6% owned. What do we have him for right here? 3. I mean, yeah, 3 to 6, something like that. I'll take a shot on that. After you touted him a bit. Booker I'm fine with, but I prefer other spends for sure. Net side really tough for me to get to. The Beekman stuff maybe, but Cade, Trey, LaMelo, like I think one of these guys are going for 60 probably. And again, it's not a normal slate with Giannis, Jokic, AD, like all these guys competing. They are the spends on the slate. Only 3 guys priced above 10K. The top 5 are all point guards. So I'm going to definitely be playing a lot of those point guards as spends too. Andrew Martinez in here, 2G the Great in here, Jordan, Najee, Luis, appreciate you all hanging out. Like button, subscribe button, all we ask from you. And if you do want to join us at the Nation, no better time, SHIPITNation.com. We have weekly, monthly, 6-month annual packages. NFL, still 2 weeks left. A lot of big boy prizes as well. Shout out to Jay Anthony and the crew. Jay Anthony won $125,000, I believe. Awesome day, awesome weekend for him. Many other SHIPIT Nation members. PGA is going on right now. No better team in the business. Showdown content, very big. Showdown streets, very big for golf. Projections, the stone. Slate plan for that. MMA off this week. Just found that out 2 days ago, Rio. Pretty sad. But, hey, that's all right. We'll be back. The next, I think, like 5, 6, something like that. NBA, of course. NHL. NASCAR will be back next month as well. ShipItNation.com. Everything you need. Let's keep it moving, Rio. Go from good game environments, not the best game environment, to a pretty interesting real-life game, one I'm excited for. DFS-wise, though, 2 solid defensive teams are Timberwolves, Dallas Mavericks. 3.5-point favorites are the Timberwolves. 214.5 total in this one. Injury-wise on the Minnesota side, Dante DiVincenzo's out, nothing else. As far as Dallas, no Lively, which is why you mentioned Gafford, Clay, Najee Marshall, and Quentin Grimes, all questionable. Again, I don't think we get too much ownership in this. I think, again, Gobert might get some. Looking at it, Ant will get a little. Very similar to Booker if you do play him at the shooting guard spot. Julius Randle's always a disaster. So I'm going to try and stay away unless you talk me into it a bit. Mavs side, really tough for me to get to much outside of Daniel Gafford. I guess that's assuming that Najee Marshall's the Clays, the Quentin Grimes play. So I guess start with that. Like, that'd be 3 wings. Somehow I don't think all of them will miss. I'm curious that if you have a lean, but if somehow all 3 of them did, that would change the slate for sure. 3 very similar players playing the wing.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely think that Najee Marshall is probably the most likely to miss, with Grimes kind of being right there behind him, just because Najee's listed with the illness tag. And you remember, I think it was earlier this month or the end of December, where he missed like 2 weeks from the illness. And then Quentin Grimes got ruled out like right before the game started last time out with the lower back injury. Klay Thompson picked up an ankle injury in the last game, but I think he played through it, so probably the most likely to play. But yeah, that's definitely slate-changing news. Thankfully, this is the first lock hour or the lock window of the game. But just talking through some like if-then stuff, because if both Grimes and Najee Marshall were to miss, going to have to push up PJ Washington and Spencer Dinwiddie a good bit. Dinwiddie would definitely get the start. But then you're also talking about mixing guys like Kessler Edwards and Prosper, probably a little bit of Brandon Williams mixing in it as well. Wouldn't say these guys are in play. Maybe Kessler Edwards is a little bit in play just because he's a decent real-life player. But yeah, I mean, it's just big for the rotation. You're going to have to really condense around these the main guys. And this is a really big game for both teams. They're kind of neck and neck right there in the standings in the West. So it'd be a huge win for either team to get a win here. And then, yeah, Derek Lively going to be out for the next 2 to 3 months, which really sucks. Also without Dwight Powell. So they're really thin in the front court. Going to be pretty much all – I mean, they'll probably mix in some PJ at the 5, but it's going to be a lot of Gafford, a lot of Maxi Kleber, and a lot of PJ at the 5. Probably going to start seeing Gafford into the 30-ish minute range. He showed that he's capable of doing that now. A couple times he's touched 30. Minnesota stuff, pretty straightforward, though. Just no Dante DiVincenzo. I will say, though, Rob Dillingham is a guy to keep an eye on. He's been coming on pretty strong as of late, 18 and 17 minutes the last 2 games. He's been playing really well. High draft pick. They're kind of – I don't think we'll ever really get more than 18 from him right now, unless they're playing like a really lesser team or Conley were to get a night off or something like that. But in a close game, they're definitely going to be going towards Conley. Chris Finch kind of mentioned that because Dillingham was playing really well, and then he pulled him at the end of the game, just said that they want to get a vet out there to just kind of settle things down a little bit. But he's definitely coming along pretty soon, so I would keep an eye on him moving forward. As far as the plays go in this game, I want to keep it pretty tight on the Minnesota side. I think Ant is definitely the best spend-up option. I'm not really looking to play much of Julius Randle. Dallas has been really good with the rim protection. I just think that Randle has a lot of ways to get cut down. And the kind of same thing for Gobert. He did get into foul trouble early last game, like 2 minutes into the game, had 2 fouls, which cut down his first quarter rotation, only ended up playing 25 in that one. But Naz Reid is definitely somebody they're starting to lean on a little bit more, and he could really take over for either one of Randle or Gobert. I think it's more likely he does against Randle tonight. Just Gobert kind of matches up better against Daniel Gafford. But it could be Gobert. I just think that Nas is playing too well right now. He's definitely the second best offensive weapon for Minnesota. So I think that he is very strong. Always comes in with a little bit of ownership just because DFS players love to play him. But I'm okay with him. 5.5K is a good tag. He's been really good this month, averaging 32 DK points per game. So definitely preferred Nas over Randall and Gobert. Would always be max 2 of those guys, but possibly even max 1. I don't think this is a great spot for McDaniels. Good thing about it is he's going to be playing a ton because they'll need him for his defense on Kyrie Irving. And with how thin Dallas is, there's a chance he gets to 40 minutes again. Rebounding the ball really well right now, shooting the ball pretty good. So he's okay, but it was a different situation. The Grizzlies, we'll talk about their defensive stuff in a little bit, but they run a ton of double teams that leaves guys like Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley open a lot. So you can see he got 6 3-point attempts, which is on the high end for him. So I think at ownership, I'm okay getting away from a guy like McDaniels, but I do prefer him over the Brooklyn guys because I know that he's a better real-life NBA player than those guys and going to be playing a ton of minutes. Not going to get there on Conley, and that's pretty much it on Minnesota. Dallas side, I don't think I'm going to really be playing much of these guys outside of Gafford. I do think Gafford is really solid at 6K because if moving forward, we're going to be seeing him play 30 minutes a night, probably going to be closer to the 7K range, just like how we saw Mark Williams get a really aggressive price bump. I mean, he's been really good. Had a career night last time out against the Hornets, put up 31, 15, 3, and 8 stocks, 71 DK points. But even 2 games before that, put up 50 against the Pelicans. 2 much softer matchups in this one. But like I mentioned, if Nas is eating into Rudy Gobert, that's just going to naturally make the rim defense for Minnesota a lot worse, which would be great for Gafford. So I think that he's a very, very solid option. But I just think Kyrie's a little bit too expensive. Not a good matchup for him. Kind of same thing for PJ. Don't see too much upside there. I think that's probably it.
Nas is a grown-ass man. I am definitely interested in Nas. Gobert's cheeks, Julius Randle's cheeks. Jaden McDaniels is also a stud. I always love playing him just because he can always have that 35 piece because he's playing 35 minutes just because he's so good on the defensive end and give me minutes all day long. Like one of the few players, the usage rates, 12, 11, 10%. He's 5K though, so that makes it a little better. You obviously got to do something at that price, but give me a guy that's playing. I mean, he's just give me him on my team any single day of the week. He's just a winning player. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily translate to fantasy like shit on Gobert and Julius Randle if they've been on the winner plenty of slates. So I'm not saying necessarily don't play him. But Naz Reid's been playing so good. That's going to eat into minutes, like you talked about. Ant or Booker, if you had to pick?
I think I like Booker a little bit better there. Just, it's very close because they have very similar roles right now. I didn't really mention too much about Ant, but like the usage and assist rate, drive, touchdown, all that stuff is way up. They made that switch with Dante coming into the starting lineup, but even adding Conley back into the mix in the starting lineup, they are just very committed to playing Ant as more of like the focal point of the offense, like kind of more like a true point guard. But yeah, I think the matchup is probably going to be a little bit better for Booker. I don't know. It's really close. I think I'll lean Booker though.
Yeah, and again, like you play a lot of different teams. You're not just building one team. If you did, maybe neither of them would be on your on your team. But it's really tough. Like a Kongwu or Duran, they're both phenomenal plays. Booker, Ant, they're both very similar in the fact of they're going to be a lot less owned than the Cades, the SGAs of the world. They have the shooting guard eligibility, which is nice though, where I would play both of them at shooting guard. Prices are very similar, but yeah, like which one's more likely to go for 60 today is the question I'd be asking myself. I don't know the answer. That's why I asked Rio. He leaned Booker slightly. I'll be playing some in my 100 teams, but again, I really want to focus mainly on those point guards. Again, it's coming with ownership, but if someone's getting 70 today, I think it's SGA, one of SGA, Trey, LaMelo. Did I say Cade?
No.
LaMelo, SGA, Cade, Trey. I think it's one of those 4. No hot takes by any means. The 4 highest price. All of them do happen to be point guard, though. When you do play them, it does make it a little harder to play one of those other guys. But there is enough value, like we talked about, the Nick Smiths, if you want to go there, etc., that you can make it work. All right, let's keep it rolling. Next game on the slate. Mentioned this one from the top. A very good real-life game. Houston Rockets taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs 2-point favorites, 228 total in this one. No injury news on the Houston side. As far as Cleveland, no Mobley. Karis LeVert is questionable. Looking at ownership in this one from the Stone. Cavs side, definitely getting some ownership. So Karis LeVert questionable. He did miss last game as well. Max Strus started for him. Curious to hear your thoughts if you have any lean. Again, this game's 8 p.m. Eastern, 30 minutes after lock, so we very well might get it. But some ownership on the Cavs side. Really nothing we're looking on the Rockets. Crazy to see this price tag for Amen Thompson, 8K. Felt like he was just in the 5Ks a bit ago. Very, very deserved, though. Another guy whose usage could be in the mid-teens, and you'd always have interest just based on what he does on the peripheral side of the ball on the basketball court. So I guess start Rockets. I feel like that'll be a lot less to talk about than go Cavs.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting game. Just two of the better teams in their respective conferences, and both kind of having a little bit of issues defensively. With the Rockets are really struggling with their pick and roll defense this season, bottom 4, which is kind of surprising. They've been a little bit better with Amen Thompson out there, but they're bottom 4 this year in that category. Their transition defense has gotten a little bit worse as well. Just kind of the nature of the game when you have guys like Amen Thompson, Jalen Green out there who run the floor a lot can lead to a lot of easier buckets on the other end. So transition defense getting worse. Kind of same thing for Cleveland. Their rim defense should be getting a little bit worse with no Evan Mobley, and their transition defense not great either. So I think that with the way that both teams like to push the pace, this could be a really, really good game that shoots out in a big way. And you kind of know where the points are coming for on the Rocket side because they run things so tight. We did see Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun kind of get de-emphasized a little bit last game. I think that's just a one-game sample. I would expect those minutes to go back their way. But I will say that the minutes they can definitely fluctuate a lot more on a nightly basis for Sengun just because Ime Udoka has shown that he doesn't really care, like that they're committed to this guy long term. Like he'll pull him out of the game if he's not playing well. If they see a mismatch on defense, they'll pull him out. And you kind of saw that with Tari Eason last game, eat into those minutes a little bit more. Tari Eason was kind of trending for 28-ish minutes, and he just returned from the leg injury. They kept him out for like a month. So yeah, I kind of don't really like Sengun as a spend up in a really tough matchup. But I do think that this could be a spot where they lean to Tari a little bit more. But I do like Amen Thompson a lot at 8K, even with the really high price tag. It's definitely earned, like you said. He's averaging 37.5 minutes per game as a starter this season. Went over 40 minutes in 5 of his last 7 games as a starter, averaging 42.2 DK points per game. Like I mentioned, with the Cavs being a little bit worse in transition, I think this could be a spot where we see a pretty solid night from Amen Thompson. So I like him the most on the Houston side. I don't really want to mess with the guards. Just could be a really tough spot for Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet. Maybe a little bit better for VanVleet if they throw Garland on him, but I think Green could have Dean Wade on him, which would be a very tough spot. And then I'm kind of always interested in Tari Eason. 5.4K is a good tag for him. Just a really wide range of outcomes, which is kind of something you want to lean into in GPPs. So I'd be okay there. Whitmore, pretty solid, but wouldn't expect a crazy big role change from him. Cleveland side, definitely a night where I'm going to be max 1 Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. I just think that's a really tough matchup for both of them. I don't know who's going to get the Amen Thompson assignment, which one is going to get Dylan Brooks. It would make sense for Brooks to be on Donovan Mitchell just because he's more drive heavy, and Amen on Darius Garland. But yeah, Darius Garland is kind of more of the pick and roll guy, so I would lean the matchup being a little bit better for him. I don't really have a strong lean, though. I think that they're both pretty solid in a really solid game environment, really solid game total. So I like both of them, but definitely would be max 1. We did see Jalen Duren put up a huge score against Alperen Sengun last time out, had a ton of offensive rebounding, which is definitely something that Jarrett Allen could do here. And we've seen him kind of spike for pretty big games with Evan Mobley sideline. So I think that Jarrett Allen is pretty solid, 6.8K, but a lot of opportunity costs at the center position, paying up for a guy like Allen when we do have guys a little bit cheaper with similar upside. And then, I don't really have a lean on LeVert. Haven't heard too much about it. Did get ruled out last game before tip-off. So, chance he misses here again would be Max Strus in there. I don't think Strus would be a good option tonight with how good the Rockets are at limiting catch-and-shoot scoring. But LeVert, if he's playing and starting, 4K is a good price tag for him, so I wouldn't mind him. I don't really think I want to mess with any of these other guys on Cleveland, though.
So no Ty Jeromes, no Dean Wades, just play the Nick Smiths of the world, Beekmans of the world, and don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's how I'm looking at it.
I like the Tari Eason shout. Like you want to embrace the big range of outcomes when ownership is really, really low. And I do not think Tari Eason can get much ownership at all. Like he'll take that 40 spot he got second game back, 23 minutes. If he shoots the ball efficiently, 35, like you definitely sign up for that any day at that ownership. So that stood out for me, what you said. I did make a rule max one. Garland Mitchell, so I always appreciate when you add little nuggets like that in. Again, we're not saying it's by any means impossible. Garland and Mitchell get there, like OT, it becomes more likely, but they're competing at their price tags. Not like necessarily the LaMelos, the SGAs, but kind of, and the Bookers, the Ant Edwards of the world. Like you got to get spend ups right. In a tough matchup like this, I'd rather ease into easier matchups, and those two also cannibalize each other, needing the ball a lot themselves. So I like that. I doubt I get much there. Now, any thoughts on who Fred VanVleet guards in this matchup? Do they throw him on a Strus and chase him around, or LeVert if he does start?
It'd probably be like Strus or Wade, just because those guys aren't ball dominant guys. They're just gonna be shooting threes. So whichever one is starting, I think that probably be Strus or Wade. I think they definitely want their best guys on the two guards.
Makes a lot of sense. Keep rolling, Rio. 2 games left on the slate, and again, then FanDuel does have 2 games after. They are including the 10 p.m. and 10:30 Eastern. DraftKings makes it real easy. You can spend all the time with the family today. 7:30, 8. Call it a day right after that. If you do want some late night action, NBA Showdown slate plan, nobody better out there than Rio doing it. I say that very confidently because I don't think anybody else does Showdown. So you're one of one, Rio, but very good job. You do help the members a lot. Let's keep rolling to another pretty interesting game for DFS. I don't know. I say interesting because the LaMelos of the world, we have a couple spends, but in terms of the spread, 12-point favorites are the Grizzlies. That does not look appealing. The biggest total on the slate, though, at 241. Injury news, Jake LaRavia is doubtful. Nothing else for Memphis. Charlotte side, no injury, no new injury news for them. What's going on? Why did they just do that? Nick Smith. All right, I think I'm back, right, Rio?
Yeah, you're good. I think it switched to your headphones for your microphone. Oh, that's better. There you go.
Yep. Now it should be good. All right. Nick Smith will definitely get some ownership, as you see. One of the highest on the slate, 37%. Mark Williams up there at center, 7K, 25%. LaMelo getting a little at point guard, like we keep mentioning. Not as much on the Grizzlies side. So interesting DFS. Big boy total, high pace for the Grizzlies, but also a big spread. So I guess if this game's close, is it a lot to do with LaMelo? Is there any groupings? Do you have more interest in a Mark Williams while playing LaMelo because you think the game's closer? Are you going to play it where it completely blows out anyone you can get to? This was the game I was really curious your thoughts with. Very high total, but again, big spread as well for the Grizz.
Yeah. I would say there's a pretty wide range of things that can happen tonight. Kind of starting with the Memphis defensively. If you watched it's hard. I don't know if you can even track double teams. I don't know if NBA.com has that type of thing, but just watching the game against the Grizzlies on Monday, I believe it was, or whenever it was, you'll notice that they whenever there's a ball dominant guard like a Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, SGA type player, they're gonna throw double teams at them. So I would expect them to do that a lot tonight with LaMelo, which is kind of why we saw Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid have huge games. Just the way that Memphis plays defense, it opens up a lot of easier looks for the lesser players on offense. If that's their MO to take away the high end guy and let these secondary guys beat them, then I think you'll live with guys like Jaden McDaniels putting up 25 points or whatever it was. So yeah, if that's the case tonight, they do double team LaMelo. I think that's a really bad spot for him. It could be one of those games where he gets 12, 13, 15 assists, something like that. And we know he's going to take a ton of shots. So the floor is probably okay for him. But I don't think that at 10.7K, I really want to pay that price tag for him. If they do go with that defensive scheme, that would make me very interested already in Nick Smith Jr., but he would be I think, really, really good. Like, there's a chance that he like is the guy that you have to have like 100% of in your teams if that's the case, if they are throwing those doubles at LaMelo. And he's definitely earned those minutes. A lot of positive coach speak about him playing the G League and kind of getting those reps in, and definitely earning of the role right now. So I think that 30 minutes is probably really solid for him, maybe even upside for a little bit more. But yeah, it could be really tough to avoid him if they do throw those double teams at LaMelo. And kind of same thing for Bridges. He's been scoring the ball really well as of late, 21 plus points in 5 straight games. It made at least 2 threes in every single one or 3 of those games. Or sorry, it made at least 2 threes in every single one of those games, 3 or 4 in a couple of those ones. So I think that he's a high upside option, 7.6K. And then kind of same thing for Mark Williams. Like if they're throwing the double teams at him, that could lead to a lot more easy buckets for Mark Williams around the basket. He's been rebounding the ball really well as of late, double-doubles in 4 straight games, averaging 51 DK points per game since they traded away Nick Richards. So the high-end ceiling looks pretty good for him. Floor looks really good. Yeah, I'm okay with Mark Williams at 7K. Even what on paper looks like a tough matchup scoring around the basket, I think that you could see a little bit more easy looks for Williams. And then kind of sneaky spot, I guess, for like Josh Green and Josh Okogie. I don't think that you really want to go out of your way to play those guys, but they're going to be left open a lot. So if you run into a high positive variant shooting night for Josh Green, maybe he makes like 3 or 4, could pay off, but probably spending too much time talking about him. Cody Martin, kind of the same thing. And then the Memphis side, always tough to play these guys when they're fully healthy. They did get G.G. Jackson back to kind of muddy up the rotation a little bit more. I think if you're getting to anybody, it's definitely the guys up top. Ja, I don't think I'm going to get there. Just had the random spike in minutes against Houston, but back to limited in like the low 30-ish minute range. I think I like the matchups a little bit better for Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane. Jackson been role really hasn't changed that much when we had him at like the 9K range when Ja was out. Still driving the ball a ton. We've seen opposing big men's put up big lines against the Hornets, so I think that he's pretty solid. And then Desmond Bane, his role has been really good. Definitely the highest minutes upside from the starters. They're staggering him and Ja Morant away a little bit to kind of increase his ball handling and playmaking a little bit. So I think that he looks probably the best on the Grizzlies, especially if they put Nick Smith Jr. on him, like Desmond Bane the most here. And then Santi, kind of always a high upside guide that you could see play more minutes. I don't know like where the minutes come from, like what type of matchups they like him in, because he played 27 and 30 against Wemby. I don't know if they really want to extend him here against Mark Williams, but maybe. And he's always got a ton of upside whenever he's on the court. Yes, I like those. I like Ja down to Santi, probably not playing too much. Or sorry, Jaren Jackson down to Santi and probably not playing too much Ja Morant.
Edey or Wells? Any thoughts for them for value? Just too thin?
Yeah, they're just not playing Edey enough right now. So I don't think that I want to go there. Wells it's really hard to know when he's going to have a good night because he doesn't really he's a really low usage guy, just plays off ball. So don't really think I want to get to too much of those guys personally.
Jarrett Allen or Mark Williams?
I think Mark
Pretty much
Williams.
Same price. 68,
Yeah.
7K.
I think Mark Williams. Yeah, I'll probably just lean Mark Williams. I think that the upside is probably a little bit better for Mark than it is for Jarrett Allen. But man, there's so many plays that are like priced the same that are very similar tonight. So it's tough to have like a strong take on either side.
So I got one more for you, and you might say the exact same thing. Desmond Bane, Miles Bridges, the exact same price tag.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I think Bridges slightly.
If LaMelo gets doubled all day, like Bridges is the first outlet, being athletic, and then have him create in the middle seems, most ideal. But they are 12-point dogs, so who knows what the game plan will be.
Yeah.
No, we didn't Rio didn't like Jalen Green too much tonight with the tough matchup. Yeah, nothing else I really to add on that. I love the Desmond Bane shout. I've always been since TCU a Desmond Bane fan. It's tough to play with like Jaren Jackson, Ja, like ball heavy guys, but the staggering of minutes and seeing what he's done recently, 7-6, I'm definitely good jumping on the Bane train. Bridges in mid-tier build, Santi, like you mentioned, Mark Williams, Nick Smith. Game seems pretty solid, but I'm going to be cautious. Like I build a lot of teams. If I had no one in this game though, or just Nick Smith, I'd be totally fine with this as 12-point favorites. But we talked about some other big spreads previously, and we're going to get to this last game right here. I mean, the Thunder 16.5-point favorites. It's a 6-game slate. You only do have so many options. So, yeah, definitely going to get to some of those Hornets. Not as much interest on the Grizz side. Last game of the night. Appreciate every single one watching. About 350. All we ask, like button, subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. Very much appreciated. Next week, we will start having Thursday shows too. So NBA content throughout NFL, 2 more weeks. PGA going on. MMA back next week. NBA, NHL, NASCAR next month. No better time. ShipItNation.com. Weekly, monthly, 6-month, annual packages all do include the Discord, except the weekly. Definitely check us out. Last game, Rio, your Utah Jazz. Not looking very hot this year, but hey, maybe in 2072 you guys will win a championship with all those picks. 16.5-point favorites are the Thunder, 233 total. Injuries in this one, no Jordan Clarkson, Sensabaugh, Cody Williams on the Utah side. OKC side, no Hartenstein. You did mention from the top, Jalen Williams is questionable, so that's definitely big. If he was out, I definitely would think SGA, who might already be the most popular spend, would be even more popular without Jalen Williams. And then all those other guys, like the Joes of the world, the Wiggins of the world, maybe Caruso's. Start with that side. If there's no Jalen Williams, who does that benefit? Secondary pieces, J-Dub, J-Dub Dollar Tree, J-Dub, Jalen Williams with the IN, complete busted as chalk. Can we go back to him? Will be pretty low owned at center than any pretty low owned Jazz's big boy dogs.
Yeah, I don't think that I would want to get to any Jazz tonight, but the reason this game does interest me a lot when you're adding back Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, Keontae George returned a couple games ago. John Collins is back. Walker Kessler. Like now, this is starting to look like an actual NBA roster. Still not good. Like there's a very good chance they get blown out, but it's a huge difference in talent when you add those guys back. So there's better chance that they keep the game close. Still a really good chance to get blown out, but I think that I would just play into the game being close because I think that's where we would get a ton of upside from the OKC side. But Jazz are just pretty easy to break down. I think the only one I'm gonna be keeping my player pool and probably there's a good chance I get 0 Jazz tonight. But Walker Kessler, 6.8K, he's been playing really good this season. The rebounding for OKC has not been very good, but there's just a lot of things going against him in this match. Not this matchup, but just tonight, just adding Collins back to the mix to take away some of that rebounding upside could be tough for Walker Kessler, but he's going to be unowned. So maybe, I would definitely probably want a OKC guy, like maybe pairing Kessler with SGA or J-Dub, something like that would make a little Jalen Williams, not Jalen, would be something that makes some sense. In terms of the Jalen Williams injury, though, if he missed, so we saw Isaiah Joe start for him last game. I believe that was against Brooklyn, if I'm not mistaken. Against Brooklyn, so home game against Brooklyn. I would think that they go to Wiggins this time if Jalen Williams were to be out, just because the starting 5 for the Jazz is huge with Lauri, Collins, and Walker Kessler there. I think they would want a little bit more size. Aaron Wiggins does a little bit more defensively too, so you probably throw him on Lauri Markkanen. That would make the most sense to me. But these secondary guys would look really good. I would much rather be playing like Cason Wallace, Wiggins, Isaiah Joe over the Nets pieces, because we're talking about like a 23 point difference between Brooklyn and OKC. Like there's a good chance that Brooklyn doesn't top 100 tonight, and OKC is for sure going to be putting up points with how bad the Jazz are defensively, especially for the things that OKC does well. The transition defense for Utah has been awful, dead last this season. OKC is 4th in transition scoring offensively. So and the catch shoot stuff for Jazz has been bad all season long. There's just a lot of things going right in OKC's favor tonight. I think those guys probably still in play, even if Jalen Williams were to play. We've seen Aaron Wiggins be the guy that they play in a blowout, but they still have a ton of bodies available tonight, so it could not be Aaron Wiggins. I'm kind of talking in a circle, but I like those secondary pieces. And then SGA.
I was going to ask that though. So none of those, if it's truly a blowout, there's 33. If it's like the Denver and Philly stuff as of yesterday, you don't think any of like Wiggins, Caruso's, Isaiah Joe's, like they really won't be in there too much, or maybe to start the fourth quarter or something like that. Again, I'm not playing that way, but they have enough bodies. They can throw 5 completely randoms at the end of the bench in the last 5-6 minutes, and you're not going to get that full blowout run. Is that correct, what you're saying?
Yeah. I think that the guys, like the one, like I know for sure Isaiah Joe might play in a blowout, but more likely than not, he wouldn't. I know for sure Caruso's not. So now we're talking about like probably like Usman Jang, maybe Dylan Jones. They have Adam Flagler available. Alex
again, you can't click those names because they're not getting real things. So yeah, it's irrelevant. I'm glad you said that. Again, I hardly play for blowout. 16.5 is definitely a lot. So I'd have less interest if Jalen Williams is in. But if it's a 9-point game with 5 minutes left, again, 9 is like there's some of that 16.5 might be backdoor covering and stuff. But 9, the SGA would be in. Like Dort would be in. That you wouldn't. And if it's a 9-point game with 5 minutes left, I'm thinking someone on the Thunder is doing well, and the Jazz collectively are playing well, like you're saying, but you don't need them because of their price tags. So, yeah, if you think this game's any bit close, I'd be surprised to see a Thunder not on the win today.
Yeah. They were good. Yeah, so I love
Panda.
That's Daisy.
Daisy.
That's the ear-piercing bark. But, yeah, I'll go on mute for a second and figure out what's going on. But, yeah, I think SGA is definitely my top spin on the slate. Probably just be locking him into my single entry teams and like taking my guaranteed 55, 56 points with upside for a lot more. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
I like it. That's again the 6 games on the slate, circling all the way back. I think it's clear. The top 5 spends on the slate are all point guard, and the 5th one has shooting guard eligibility. Only 3 players priced above 10K. A good amount of injury news, Q tags, but again, 7:30 is the first start time, 8's the last one. We probably get them all. Center is also very strong, mainly mid-tier / lower tier, like the 5 to 7K range for the most part. 2 centers very strong as well. Circle it all the way back to the first game. I do think this Pistons-Hawks game is the best, but again, stuff like the Jalen Williams news, important. If any net stuff changes, if somehow all of Quentin Grimes, Clay, and Najee Marshall will out, that changes stuff. Again, all of our content, projections, core reports, all updated throughout the night as well. Showdown content, Rio will have as well. Final thoughts, Rio? A couple good close spread games, good real life games, like you mentioned, the Houston game I'm excited for. A couple big blowouts, but DFS wise, I always love seeing that $5. Had some success there. I expect to lose, but it costs a lot less when you lose versus $15, $18, etc. So hopefully we see some of those Shipping Nation logos up top. Final thoughts for the people.
No, not really. Yeah, I like the $8 a little bit more. Got close on Friday, sweating that out with each other. But yeah, $5. It's so tough to win. But you've been close a lot of times. It's like it's a game of inches once it gets down to the end. There, you're talking about 100K down to like 4 or 5K if you get 4th or 5th place. So it's really tough. But still fun to play. Gonna be in Discord all the way up to lock and probably 50-50 chance there's showdown content up tonight. I do like that they have the little 2-hour break in between, so it gives me some time to get some food in and get all that stuff done. But yeah, as far as the like last thoughts for the slate, just gotta be on your computer up to lock and wait for this Dallas news. Pretty much the biggest one we're waiting on outside of the Jalen Williams news. I think that those 2 are the most slate changing ones. Probably have everything we are going to get from Brooklyn up to now. But yeah, that Dallas stuff is definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. For the cores, so you get 5 players from Rio, from Ham, from BJ. But again, the last thing we want at Chip Nation is someone just go in, plug in Rio's cores, plug in hoop cores, plug in whatever cores. That's why we have education courses for all these 2 hours. We talked NBA, NFL's like 4 hours, about an hour and a half in MMA. Any sport you're trying to play, whether it's new, you've played it, I would definitely check out the education videos here. Even if you don't want to join, how you join chippination.com, you click join the nation. We have weekly, monthly, 6-month prices. You can see with Shiptimizer, without, if you just want single sport, PGA football options. You're watching the NBA show though, so you probably want one of these. And if you just want a free newsletter, don't want to sign up at all, just plug your email in right here from Hoop and Tambo. fantasy football roadmap. You get a lesson 1 for free. Again, SHIPITNation.com. Everything you need right here. Awesome stuff as always, Rio. Like button, subscribe button on the way out. Does help us out a ton. Appreciate every single one watching. We will be back Friday talking some hoops. And again, next week starting Monday through Friday, we will have a show talking NBA every single day because NFL will be done. Very, very sad. Just the Super Bowl, but it's NBA time after that. Full force, Rio. Hoping prizes every single day. Sometimes Monday, Thursday, not as good. Hoping next week that they really ramp it up. Good stuff. We will be back on Friday for Rio.
No show on Friday.
No show on Friday.
Only 3 games on Friday, so no show.
Okay, there we go. So 4 games and above is like we always do. What are they doing on Friday? What else is going on? I didn't expect any Friday to have 3 games or less. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Saturday, BJ will have you covered with a quick hit. Monday through Sunday, every single day, though, we have core reports, slate plans, etc. Good stuff, Rio. For Rio, I'm Title Tom. Peace.